Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first show of 2021 of the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it, presented by Rogue Matter. We dish on all things comics, movies, TV, and pop culture, give you a rogue perspective on everything, and sometimes talk to the rogues themselves who are creating this stuff. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by the Lord of the Radio. I'm going to keep that moniker for the rest of 2021. Mr. Hassan Godwin, how you doing, sir?
Happy New Year.
Hey, there we go. You're very festive. I love it. I love it.
Yes, this is me festive. This is
as
festive as I get.
As always, we do this every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook.com/Rogue Matter Podcasts. You can download this podcast immediately following the live stream on all major podcasting apps, or you can go to Rogue Wave Podcast, that's wave without an E.com, to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Join the movement. Go Rogue, roguematter.com. I am legitimately excited for 2021. I think we will look back on 2020 or not. and just kind of it will be
mostly not.
Be,
hopefully not.
Yeah.
Hopefully not a lot of looking back.
The year that shall not forward. Be named. That shall not be named.
Look, we gotta revel in the fact that we got through 2020 and that that it was an experience.
Seen a lot of resilience in this country.
It was a historic experience and stuff like that. So yeah, let's celebrate it, but also let's stay away from it.
Yeah.
Let's be happy about it, but let's stay the hell away from it also.
We are looking ahead on tonight's podcast. We're going to look at all the comics, movies, TV, and pop culture that will be coming out in 2021. We're going to have an awesome guest, which is a recurring guest. Chris Arrant from Newsarama is going to join us a little later. He's going to run through all the comic stuff, DC Future State, Star Wars High Republic. Are the X-Men back on top in the Marvel Universe? He's going to give us some inside info on that. We're gonna do over/under on whether or not we're gonna, when we're gonna see our favorite movies in theaters, or when we will see them in theaters. But first, I kind of wanted to start with this, and this is our Rogue Rage, all the rage in the pop culture world. A lot of fun little things coming out. We kind of ended the year on a DC note, maybe not a positive DC note, depending on your take on Wonder Woman 1984. But we'll begin with this DC Extended Universe films. We talked about it last year. I mean, it was announced last year. There's a multiverse. Now it was reported by New York Times that Michael Keaton could be the DCEU's main Batman going forward, replacing Ben Affleck. Both men will appear as the character in the upcoming Flash movie. The Hollywood Reporter report stated the 68-year-old could appear in several films in a Nick Fury-type role. And Keaton, also a key part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe as the Vulture, played, he's reprising it from his original Tim Burton Batman role. So this is Michael Keaton referencing his past in the Tim Burton universe. And then you actually brought it to my attention too. Obviously, there's a report out just today. Is Michael Keaton the new Batman? Not so fast. This is from CNN. When the New York Times reported DC Films plans to have Keaton reprise his role, some fans took it as Keaton would be Batman permanently. But Brooks Barnes, the writer of the piece, actually clarified that Keaton will be in only one film. There's been offline moving apartments and return to see this. I don't know why it says moving apartments, but whatever. To see this Michael Keaton craziness. Oh, been offline. That's the writer. He tweeted, to return to see this Michael Keaton craziness. I was referring to the one film that Keaton has been announced as being in, not a set of his own Batman films. If I had the info on him beyond The Flash, I would have obviously put it in my article. So it got me thinking, though. It got me thinking and also wondering about my grammar. How many Batmen or Batmans? See, I put Batmans on Facebook. I thought that was the right way to do it. But how many
that works. Batmans.
Right, because it's Batmans, right? Even though grammatically it should be Batmen, right? Batmen would be the plural.
It is probably pronounced grammatically as Batmen if you're talking about more than one people being Batmen. But if you are actually referring to more than one brand, so it's like saying cornflakes versus boxes of cornflakes,
correct,
or cornflake boxes, which is probably more proper a grammatical expression to exclaim that you are not talking about the flakes individually, but the boxes of flakes. So you're not talking about men playing Batman more than how many Batman franchises are we going to have, right? How many Batmans are there going to be before the prevailing public gets tired of this nonsense, right?
Yeah.
It's like Spider-Mans, how many Spider-Mans are there going to be,
Yeah, and that's the thing. When they talked about the multiverse originally, I actually got really excited. I said, that's a brilliant idea. It's brilliant. They use it in the comic books. It's a way for creators to it's a way for publishers to give creators their own little nook to say, just tell the story. You don't need to worry about continuity. Fans are knowledgeable as well of what this means, so that they're able to kind of, read it and go, well, this contradicts what happened in Batman 678 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it gives creators freedom to kind of tell their story. What it does for the movies is at least it will nicely kind of tie all the different, like you said, Spider-Mans together, and for the Marvel universe, because they're also doing a multiverse approach. And in DC, it'll tie together all the different Batmans, and so I kind of like the idea. But the more and more I'm reading on social media people's opinions, they're like, how many friggin' Batmans at the same time are we going to have? I mean, at least with Marvel, it seems from what we've seen, they're doing one movie with the multiverse, and they've introduced the multiverse concept into the Spider-Verse. So people are kind of familiar with it, and it's going to be kind of like that. From DC's recent announcements, it feels like we're going to have like a Batman movie and then another Batman movie right after. Two different Batman, two different universes.
Yeah. Look, it could happen. It could work. You get a genius behind it. It could work, but basically it just says that they're out of ideas.
You think so? See, I don't know if I see it that way. I don't see it as they're out of ideas. I see it as they looked at what Marvel did, and in a way to try to get out of being like Marvel, because we're not doing these MCU, tightly knit universe stories anymore. They're also just copying Marvel one more time again, and they're going to just fail at this, right? Like, what do you think? What do you think the odds are that this gets pulled off correctly?
The odds are bad,
right? Like you would sit there and say they're going. They couldn't
even do their own standard universe successfully. They couldn't do a Man of Steel movie.
Yeah,
a guy coming from Krypton. How many times has that story been told? Without without just doing some world breaking stunts that just for the bigger and better crowd, like to up the ante into the bigger and better stratosphere that actually just broke the world that they were trying to build,
right?
And so it doesn't really make and I mean, if you start the DCEU with basically a nuclear explosion that destroys Metropolis and threatens the world, how are you going to bring that back down to Batman, or Suicide Squad after that? Like it's one of those things. Like even the Marvel universe started with Iron Man fighting Ironmonger.
Right.
One guy fighting another, or theoretically started with the Hulk, Iron Man, the Hulk, that kind of thing. Right.
Yeah.
One guy, one hero doing one thing, build up, and then, build up goodwill. Man of Steel, the world got invaded by aliens, and then they just, they destroyed half the world. They destroyed Smallville, and they destroyed Metropolis. How are you going to do a Batman? How are you going to do like Suicide Squad after that? The stakes have this. You started out with the stakes being massively high, and now you've lowered the stakes, or you've lowered the scope to like 5 or 6 people. And the nuance of the 5 or 6 people are that they're all criminals instead of heroes.
Right.
But we don't even know the difference now, because we don't really know the heroes of this new world other than Superman, who aided and abetted the destruction of a major metropolitan city, and then broke some guy's neck at the end of it. So it's they didn't do that very well. Now you're going to talk about we're going to have multiple Batman, multiple Jokers, multiple multiple worlds opening up and cameos from this and that. It's going to be a wonderful spectacle for people like us to sit back and watch. Like, no, that's interesting, And then after that, we're going to go, that was really interesting. And then you're going to say to me, yeah, but did you like it? And then I'm going to go, not really. That's what's usually happened. That's the same thing that happened with Wonder Woman. Like, you watch it and you're like, this is really a lot of interesting stuff put together. And then when forced to consolidate your opinion, you come out with, it's not really that good, because this didn't work, that didn't work, and this didn't work. So I don't know how they're going to be able to do a multiverse. I would give Marvel the edge on that one. Yeah. Unfortunately. Well, Marvel's got the edge on all of this stuff.
Let me bring this to a point as well, too, right? How many times have we heard of, like, now this happens in Star Wars a lot, right? I mean, but because Star Wars was very high profile in their firings. How many times have we heard now that there's just like people leaving this movie or not, Ben Affleck was one of those, I'm going to do a Batman movie. No, I'm not going to do a Batman movie. And I think there was also, I don't know if it's as prolific as the Star Wars movies, but it's always high profile when someone leaves a DC movie because of their track record of not being able to successfully do DC movies. When does it happen with Marvel? I know it has. I believe there was the original director of the Doctor Strange movie was now replaced by Sam Raimi, right? The sequel. But for the most part, when it happens, we just tend to give the benefit of the doubt and say, well, Marvel knows what they're doing because of their track record. DC has just such an awful track record. There is no, even despite recent successes, I still can't give them the benefit of the doubt and say, like, yeah, they're going to be able to handle this and make this, correct. The best case example is we watched the Flash movie, and it's a one-off blanket of establishing the rules, right? That's the best I can hope for from DC, rather than let's explore the multiverse as a concept throughout all the different movies and, make it a recurring storyline. Literally just do a one-off and say, this is what the multiverse is. Obviously tell it through story and character. Any movie you watch going forward is part of this multiverse, and that's all you need to know, right? Like, that's the best I can hope for. With Marvel, you're kind of sitting there going like, boy, I hope Tom Holland gets to meet Tobey Maguire, and Tobey Maguire could maybe appear in some movies. And I'm hoping that this can happen and this can happen. Meanwhile, I'm reading these things, Michael Keaton being a Nick Fury type, that's what gets me nervous, appearing in multiple Batman movies as like a Nick Fury Batman, or some people were rumored saying like a Batman Beyond. Like, that gets me worried. It gets me worried that this is just the same old DC.
I just wish they would tell a story.
Right.
A story instead of trying to tell you an event.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. Just tell me a story. Look at Spider-Man Homecoming. Right? Really wasn't a super big event as compared to other Marvel movies at the time.
Right.
It's just it's just him trying to figure out how to be Spider-Man while also trying to figure out how to join the Avengers or whatever. Right. And then he loses out on, things and has to kind of solve the mystery of the movie on his own without even his Spider-Man gear for the most part. Right. Kind of a small movie. Also Ant-Man. Now those movies didn't, like, Spider-Man did really well at the box office. Ant-Man always
did well for Ant-Man.
It does moderate in comparison to the others, but they're not afraid of just one story of telling you a story of Pym, not Pym, what's his name, being in house arrest, playing the electric drums, and they're not afraid of that. They're not afraid of a giant ant, playing electric drums for him. They're not worried about that.
Right.
So DC is afraid to go small. It's afraid to build. It's afraid to focus on a character or on a single storyline. It's constantly trying to establish multiple fronts, multiple wars, and worlds and all that stuff in a single go,
Yep.
And part of it is like part of it is the economy of it. We want to kick off our entire universe with this one movie, and then we won't have to world build these next few movies. But no, what happens is you do such a bad job trying to kick off a world that you spend your next 3 movies trying to explain the world that you established in the first movie.
Yep.
Which is all of what Batman versus Superman was about, was explaining the repercussions from losing half of Metropolis,
Yep.
And you still can't really talk your way out of that bubble, unfortunately. So the DCEU is they're gonna do the multiverse thing just like Marvel. I don't know who's copying who at this point, because we know that Civil War was a blatant copy of the Batman versus Superman. Well, but they still did such a much better job with it.
But it was still based in. It had the.
I know. It's based. There was a but I mean, they pushed that storyline to the forefront because of Batman versus Superman. So, I mean, you don't know who's copying who at this point, but you know who does it better.
That's an example. I wouldn't say that's... See, but here's what I would say, actually. That's like in the 80s when Marvel and DC used to really be super competitive. And there's a difference between, like, we're going to copy you rather than, okay, you up the ante, we're going to up the ante. Well,
that's what I mean. I mean, you're taking me too literally. I'm saying it doesn't really matter.
I don't mean to make you say, I don't mean for you to say, but when I hear the word copy, I immediately kind of think, and like,
it's just you're hung up on a phrase, and I'm trying to get past the phrase.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter which came first at this point. It just matters who does it better.
Right.
And DC hasn't done the groundwork for them to be able to capitalize on something like this. They're still trying to relaunch other franchises. They're still trying to relaunch Batman. They're still trying to relaunch. They're struggling with the sophomore effort from Wonder Woman.
I was just thinking that.
They haven't even announced Aquaman. So I mean, we don't know where we are. We don't know where we are with Superman. Sometimes Cavill's back. Sometimes he's out. Yeah. Sometimes there's going to be another one. Sometimes it's not. We're going to get another Justice League movie this month. Right? Or this year, not this month, but this year. Right? And we don't really even, and they've already hamstrung that because they said this is just a one event where this is not a signaling that we're not going to relaunch this. So they don't know what they're doing. They don't even know how to build goodwill. And I knew this all the way back during Man of Steel, where they have Superman on the Kryptonian ship that they found in the Arctic, and they see one of the pods is open, and everyone immediately, it worked for their efforts. Everyone immediately thought it was going to be Supergirl. Like they were announcing that Supergirl was already out in the world, right, somewhere. Right. So then the television show does, the Arrowverse does a Supergirl show, but that's not connected. Like they had so many opportunities to say we are a bigger universe. All of this stuff is connected, but they wanted to keep it all separate. So now you got multiple Supermen, multiple Batmen, multiple Barry Allens running around doing the thing. It's a mess. And then ultimately, 5 years in, they do kind of signal that the movies and the TV shows are connected. But it was in such a non-committal way that it was just a cute nod to the fans. It wasn't really a declaration of the situation of the franchise. So I don't know, man. I don't have high hopes they're going to be able to pull this off. I'm interested. I'll watch it and I support them. I'm hoping. I'm not rooting against them. But but from what they've shown me, I don't think so.
Well, it's funny too. You mentioned Justice League. This also came out over the weekend. Zack Snyder has no plans to make more DC films after Justice League. He recently shared that after the miniseries release, he has no future plans. Look, I never thought I'd be here doing this. I didn't think I'd be finishing Justice League. Truth is, and it's been widely reported, and I have no issue. This is an old movie. This is a years-old movie I'm working on. The DC universe has gone and branched off and done its own thing, and that's fine. As far as what I did and as far as what my vision was for what I wanted to do with these characters and the journey I wanted them to go on, it's well known that I planned on more movies, 5 movies or something, but I'm busy. got a lot going on. Is it cool that the fans have so much faith? Yes, and I couldn't be happier. But would I continue? I have no plan to. But like I said, I didn't think I'd be here, so who knows? It's an amazing about face. You know, we talked about it last episode. DC executives let it leak. They're like, Justice League is a cul-de-sac. Meaning it's just going to go in circles, not going anywhere. It's not branching off into a Zack Snyder universe. And now all of a sudden, where Zack Snyder was kind of hinting at, yeah, I want to do this. He's kind of like, oh no, I'm busy now. I'm busy, guys. I'm busy.
What if that's because of what they said? You know, what if that's instead of
no doubt.
No, I know, but I'm saying suppose he had ideas or whatever, and then they just, in order to stonewall him or in order to push the negotiations, they overpowered their reaction to it and called him a cul-de-sac. So now, whatever ideas he may or may not have been able to bring to the forefront, suppose he's like, hell with you guys now. I'm just going to bring these. That's like having. I'm going to take these things elsewhere.
Yeah, that's like having a girl be into you. You go on a couple dates and you're like, yeah, this thing's going to go really good. And then she's like, yeah, nah, I don't think this is really going to go. And well, it didn't matter. I was busy anyway, bro. Like, I'm good.
But I'm saying, like, look, what if? Yes, definitely. But what if? No. What if he actually had ideas? You know, what if he had?
Does. He absolutely does. He's
no, but I mean, what if they were like they're good ideas?
Yeah.
And we're not even going to hear them now because in their kind of, I don't know, barbaric, or draconian ways of negotiating, they basically hamstrung all the goodwill that he might have had. You know, he might have revealed, I got an idea for this and that. They would have been like a logical, like Marvel, like Kevin Feige would have been like, well, we'll discuss it. You know, we'll talk to you about it. And then ultimately, it didn't work out, right? If they decided to go a different way.
Yeah.
There's no way, there's no way you can discuss it now with Zack Snyder without making everybody look like a schmuck, right? Yep. And that's the problem. These people just do not know how to negotiate. It's still that Marvel is a brand new studio, which is like with amalgamated source of talent, where they all pool their resources. They all they under the direction of one creative head.
Yep.
Right. That's a brand new way of doing things. Whereas you've got Warner Brothers, who are copyright infringement madmen, right? Who are trying to get every nickel and dime everybody in the business. And also, they've got this Masters of the Universe kind of attitude, where the producers are the kingmakers,
right?
Right. So they're going to be like, no, we don't need you. You need us. And that kind of attitude on display, maybe even if it's real, that kind of attitude on display destroys negotiations before they even get started.
Yep.
So the hell with it. That's why that universe can't grow, because you got too many people trying to be the captain of that ship, and the ship won't sail. It's not going anywhere.
Yep.
So, whatever.
And the last point before we go to break. If Wonder Woman 1984 was a better film, like a better story, I won't even say better film, because it was a nice looking film, but if it was a better story, I think this conversation would be completely different. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe DC is a cul-de-sac. And we were just.
That's what I'm saying. I don't really think there's anything to be built out of this, because they're not trying to build anything. They're constantly trying. It's like you put up a tent, right? You build a tent in the middle of the woods, and I come along and I start putting logs around it. We're going to make this tent into a house. Like, well, I didn't build this tent for it to be a house. Right. I built this tent for it to be a tent. You can't turn a tent into a house, right? And that's what they're doing. Everybody's like got one movie gets off the ground. This is a great movie. How do we build a universe around Joker? No, it wasn't built like that.
Right.
It's not built for that. So, I don't know.
Well, what do you guys think? Comment in the Facebook feed. Hit us up on all kinds of social media. How many Batmans is one too many? Are you guys going to be confused? Do you think the general public's going to be confused? Do you think DC is a cul-de-sac? We will respond back to you. Coming up next, we are going to take a look into the crystal ball that is 2021 and do a little over-under as to whether or not we are actually going to see the films that are scheduled to be released when they're going to be released when we come back.
Welcome to Button Stash, the show about the best mustaches in gaming.
Casey, it's Button Smash. It's the new gaming podcast from the Rogue Matter Network. I don't know where you got mustaches from.
Well, I'm not shaving. But we will talk about gaming news, reviews, inside scoops, and retrospectives.
Join us live on twitch.tv/WeAreRogueMatter on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, or download our episodes wherever you listen to your podcast.
But please, Casey, shave.
Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. Catch our sister podcast, Button Smash. They'll be returning this week, tomorrow, in fact, with their first show of 2021. Lots of video game news to cover. You can catch them on twitch.tv/WeAreRogueMatter every Thursday night, 9 p.m. And then you can check them out on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/RogueMatter. You can check us out on the YouTube channel. We do a lot of great stuff. We actually slice up a lot of this show that you get to watch here on Facebook into little segments, so you can consume us everywhere, because we are the future of 2021.
Your anecdote just went nowhere, man. Just let's do this. Let's just get into it.
We are the future. All right,
Stop it.
We are on the 2021 movie calendar spree. I actually pulled together some TV streaming stuff, but we're going to save that for next week because WandaVision will be debuting on the 15th, supposedly. So we'll dive into the TV stuff happening, but let's take a look at the 2021 movie calendar. Now, in years past, it would have been, well, Hassan, which movie are you most excited for? Which you then tell me you're not excited for anything, but at least we would know that those movies were coming out. Okay. We would at least have say, you know what?
As long as the goal of the segment was reached, it doesn't really matter, right?
So we would
that's
would
the only thing
know-
that's important.
Exactly. Well, there you go. You finally, it's only been, do you realize next week?
Oh, Lord, here we go.
Do you realize, is it next week or the week after? It was the 16th of January. I launched Secrets of the Sire, 2016. So it'll be a 5-year anniversary of this incarnation of the show, at least with me. And then it was the year after that you joined. So, you know, there's some milestones.
So 4 years? I've been on this show for 4 years?
I think so. I got to find the exact episode, but I think you were like episode 48. Something like that.
I will honestly say, and this will be a rare moment of non-snarky reaction. It doesn't feel like 4 years, even though you drive me crazy. It does not.
Well, because I've been driving you crazy a lot longer than that. So it's been a lot longer than that.
That's true.
we just haven't recorded it and put it on
Yes.
YouTube. that's the big difference. And
that's the absolute truth. I cannot deny that. That is total truth.
People ask you, how do you make a successful show? Drive someone crazy and record it. And there you go.
Yes. Yeah. It's pretty simple. It's a simple formula. It's a very simple formula.
It works. All right.
They've been doing it on morning news shows for, I don't know, almost half a century. So it does work.
So we've got some streaming stuff, and again, we'll do all the streaming. We'll even do streaming movies next week. We'll just cover streaming because I think streaming now. I mean, amazingly, right? It used to be like movies and TV. Now it's like theaters versus streaming, right? I think that's the best way to kind of parse these upcoming projects. One quick note, and we'll get into it more next week. I think is Coming to America. I saw the trailer for that. Kind of dug that. I'm actually vehemently opposed to bringing back movies 20, 30 years after the release. In this case, 35 years?
A solid 30 years, yeah.
This is 35. 86, I think, or was it 88? I can't remember exactly.
I don't even want to go back and
it's 30 plus.
Try to figure out. Yeah.
It is definitely 30 plus. But I kind of dug that trailer. And again, we'll dive more into that because it is an Amazon only feature. We'll do that next week,
which is great because we will be able to partake in that immediately, right? We'll get right into that.
Yeah.
And it looked good. It looked energetic and funny, you know, and whatever. So, I'm all for it. I'm looking forward to it.
So And again, obviously, we have the Justice League stuff coming out in March, but that is not a movie that will be released in theaters. Although I guess maybe they're talking about maybe a 4-hour cut. So we'll save the Justice League
It's
stuff
in black and white.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll save that for next week as well too. The first comic book related film that's not animation that I have on this list. I dug this list up from. I hope they're reliable. QZ.com. Got to be reliable.
Oh.
But it was nice. It was a nice
Sounds
chart.
great.
It was a nice chart. Morbius, March 19th. Give me your over-under odds. Over-under 20% that actually hits theaters. Jared Leto's Morbius, March 19th. Over-under 20%. So I'm giving low odds right now. So this is a tricky one for you, right? This is not.
It's a 20%. I'll say over, but not much over 20%.
All right. So,
but if your bar is as low as 20%, I'll go over.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely say that. April 16th, again, this is cheating by Warner Brothers. Mortal Kombat, it's going to be streaming in theaters, so it's like a 99% over-under. It's going to happen, right? It's going to be released in theaters.
Yeah,
because
that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think we're just going to cut.
Or they're going to say
Brothers.
it's going to happen. I mean, I don't know how we'll prove it.
Yeah, all right, so we'll cut any Warner Brothers.
How can it still be locked away?
Yeah, which stinks because Godzilla versus Kong, again, that's May 21st. Again, that's a Warner Brothers, so that's going to be HBO Max in theaters. I mean, the nice thing is we got a lot
I think it's over 50 that they're going to push it back. I think it's over 50 they're going to push most of these back, especially, okay, look, not even when we're not talking about politics really, but you got a new administration in and you got a new dedication to the vaccination of the nation. And I didn't mean for any of that to rhyme, right? So,
but well done anyway.
Well, thank you. I'm an asshole.
I'm not even mad. I'm kind of impressed.
with that dedication, you could see hedge bettors say, let's just push it back. Probably by September, October, November, we might be back to capacity on most of these theater outings. Right? Let's give us some time so that we might have the population out and about again. So you could see, I mean, I think it's an over under 50. I think it's an under 50 that will be at any level of capacity by the end of this year that rivals the year before, 2019 and before. But I think it's over 50 in a over under as to whether or not people are going to hedge their bets that there's going to be more possibility for their films in theaters by the end of the year. And then they're going to push most of these major motion picture franchises back at least past August.
Yeah, so this is interesting, right? So on that note, Black Widow, May 7th, 50%. I'm going to give you a 50% even that we see this in theaters, that it doesn't get pushed back. 50% odds.
May 7th?
May 7th. Over under May 7th, 50%.
I would say under, but I do say it depends on the next 2 months of vaccinations. So like if we not even if we are successful, but we over publicize the success of the initiative to get us all vaccinated, I think people will have the goodwill and they'll all see it as kind of a mutual benefit to push whatever new movies are coming out. Like, things are getting better now. Come out and see this movie, and you can see some of those movies part of this initiative. Yeah. Now, if we have like infrastructure problems in rolling this stuff out, I could see a bunch of people moving that, and I could definitely see, especially with Winter Soldier and WandaVision on television, I think Marvel would feel comfortable pushing it back because they're getting their representation back into the households. So we'll see.
The question we also have to ask is, at what point do they pull the plug, right? At what point do they shift the release date to where they can adequately do the marketing for it? Like, I would think March, right? Like, I would think March is like March 7th is your cutoff.
Yeah, for a May release.
You'd have to make the decision by March 7th so that you could adequately promote the film. Maybe it's April 7th. Maybe they have till April. So maybe we have more time for Marvel to kind of say. So
I hope the biggest debate is to which theater to go to by the time May comes around. But I'm just trying to be realistic about it.
Here's a good one.
I think if I was a betting man with money, I would I would push most of my prospects back with the optimistically anticipating things would be way better around September.
Okay. Oh, September. So this is good.
Quarter.
This is a good one for you then. June
quarter.
25th. Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I'm going to give you 70% odds, over under 70% chance we see Venom in theaters June 25th.
If you said it was 50, I'd say over. If you're saying 70, I say under, but only by a little.
By a little, right?
I'm not going.
I'm getting much better at this over under
stuff,
stuff, right?
Yeah,
I'm giving you some.
I'll give you that.
I'm giving you some.
At least no. You're doing the same with it, but you've finally explained it to me in a manner where I can understand it. So I'm actually doing way better with it.
Good point.
Because now I get it. I don't know what the hell over.
4 years later, we're finally figuring this show out.
Yeah.
Shang-Chi, July 9th, 2021. Now this becomes interesting, right? Because this would be the first new date they would push Black Widow to. Right? Like if they do it, they do the domino effect, the ripple. We can't go May 7th, so now this comes out here and this comes out here. This is Marvel's.
So if they push Black Widow back, then Shang-Chi would be the first Marvel movie to come out. Are you saying? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that Shang-Chi then would also not be shown July 9th. That would then get pushed to a later date as well. You know what I'm saying?
So
like it's the domino effect.
Over under, if Black Widow gets pushed back, what's the over under on Shang-Chi also being pushed back?
I think it's 1%.
What you're asking?
Yeah, 1%, because I think it's a guarantee that Shang-Chi is not going to be a July 9th. I think if you have to uproot Black Widow again, and they've already moved it twice, right? At least twice, then definitely Shang-Chi's got no chance at that point. Yeah, has got.
They're not going to take a chance with a brand new franchise during all this.
The only thing I can say is that because Black Widow is technically a prequel to Avengers Endgame, and I just use that term very loosely. It's not a direct, release. Yeah. It just basically takes place before.
But spoilers. Endgame. If you've seen Endgame, it has to be a prequel. Spoilers.
You basically are guaranteeing, not guaranteeing. You could move Black Widow, and it's not like you could put Black Widow after Shang-Chi. One doesn't necessarily, but unless there's those, again, it's those end credit sequences that Marvel's so famous for that has to be.
Yeah, but you could swap those around theoretically. You could theoretically swap those around. Yeah. Sometimes the end credit sequence doesn't have anything to do with the movie you just watched.
Yeah.
Like what was the one? Wasn't it either Thor Ragnarok or it was Thor, where Thanos came out and said, "I'll do this myself," and he puts the gauntlet on. I think at the end of Thor Ragnarok or one of the Spider-Man. I don't even remember which movie that was, but basically Thanos was not in that movie. It had nothing to do with the hero in that movie. So they could definitely kind of swap the end scenes around.
Yeah.
If they needed to.
Yeah. Unless it's so specific that they can't. So it'll be interesting to see. Be so interesting to see what happens.
Yeah,
all right, last two. And these are interesting, right? Eternals, November 5th, 2021. And again, I guess it all kind of hinges on Black Widow. So I'm going to actually give it the same odds. I'll say 1% chance if Black Widow gets moved that this gets moved. Or do you think, July to November, that's a lot of time. They could bump Shang-Chi. They could bump Shang-Chi without replacing Eternals. I'll give it 10%. Let's do 10% over under if Black Widow gets moved. That November 5th is still the home for Eternals.
I'd say over if you're going 10%. Let's say over 10%.
Yeah, I think that's. I
don't even know why you would do an over and under for 10% because that still doesn't mean anything.
I know it's so
that could be that could be 11%. It doesn't really mean anything.
And finally, Spider-Man: Homecoming 3, December 17th.
What the name of the
21? First of all,
December 17th.
December 17th. Now I got to give Marvel a nod here for at least not doing it the week between Christmas and New Year, so we can at least take that week off again. But actually, no. Book of Boba Fett. Oh, we're screwed. We're working through the holidays.
We can only hope.
Maybe we'll take the Wednesday before Thanksgiving off next year.
Oh, Dios mío, dude. Let's not even talk about the holidays. They're so far away. It's so far away. We've got so much of a year to get through.
December 17th, 2021. Are we seeing Spider-Man? I'm not even going to give you odds. Just yes or no.
Yeah.
Okay.
One way or another, they're gonna have they will have figured this whole thing out. So even if we're still and God forbid, even if we're still on lockdown in some way, they're gonna find a way.
Imagine we're here a year later, and it's like 2021, the year that will not be named.
Yeah.
Thank God we put that in our rear view.
Yeah, let's not.
Aliens.
Let's not even.
Who knew? Who had that on their bingo card?
Let's not even joke. But I mean,
who knew?
Look,
They came down here just to see Spider-Man. Who knew?
I think if we're still in isolation in some way, I think they will. In order for them to survive, the industry will have found a way to make streaming work, to make it all work.
Yeah.
In a paying system. So, I mean, I still think it'll come out. I don't know. We'll be able to see it, but hopefully.
We got a lot of good stuff coming out in the new year in 2021. We're happy to be here. What do you guys think? Which one are you guys looking forward to most? What movies do you think we are actually going to see out of those lists in 2021? Hassan is very excited. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Another guest coming up.
He's
always excited. Mr. Chris Arrant, Newsarama. He's going to dive into the comic book landscape.
He's always more excited than me.
21 when we come back. We are joined by Newsarama's Chris Arrant. How you doing, sir? Happy New Year.
I'm doing good. Happy New Year to both of you.
You are our go-to comic book expert. We got a lot of cool things coming out in 2021. We got a lot of cool things coming out on RogueMatter.com, but we're not going to bring you in on that. We'll leave it to us to be those experts. But everything else that's going on in the comic book world, you've got the inside pulse on it. Talk to us about what's the bigger anticipated event, the DC Future State or the X of Swords that's going on right now? If we would do the Marvel versus DC like we kind of talked about in the first segment a little bit.
X of Swords finished a couple weeks ago. They're in this Reign of X era now. I'd say there's potential in Future State, but it seems more realized with the X-Men books because they've already proven that it's on like a very good track that the fans seem excited about more than X-Men fans and fans in general have been maybe since the early to mid 2000s. So I'd have to say the X-Men books.
Is X-Men now like the #1 book at Marvel again? Are they back on top?
It kind of jostles around with all the variant covers and specials, but I think reliably it's definitely top 5 book every month. It's regained that status as one of the Marvel's go-to books.
You think that's going
and the line itself is now healthier than it has been maybe since like the late 90s.
Yeah.
This is a big chunk of Marvel's output these days.
Well, that's the funny thing too, because Hassan and I kind of lament the days when X-Men. I mean, and again, you could talk to any like millennial or Gen Zer, and I think they'd be shocked to hear that. Like, what do you mean Captain America wasn't the biggest thing at Marvel? What do you think? What do you mean Spider-Man's not the biggest thing at Marvel? You know, like it was X-Men. It was always X-Men. Like that was like the #1 property that they had, and it was the natural first movie that they kind of put out. It's interesting. I think it's a credit to Hickman, but it's also kind of, is it a behind the scenes strategy? I mean, are we looking at the foundation for the X-Men coming into the Marvel universe in the movies?
Yeah. I think once Disney, Marvel Studios, Marvel Entertainment got full access to take advantage of X-Men in all the ways that they're really good at, they decided now would be the time to put the money and the effort, which is paid for by money, to really kind of go this extra length. This has been something they've been kind of foreseeing that would happen as an eventuality, and they it was originally going to launch a couple months earlier, but they delayed it so they could really get all the pieces into play, not just to relaunch the X-Men book, but to make it a family of titles. Like, if you consider this like as a group, it's probably like overall the largest selling group of comics in Marvel. Like as a group, like it would. But like if you just count the sales for the X-Men books, that would probably be larger than most publishers besides Marvel, DC, and like Image. Like they'd be a solid couple percentage points. So it is huge, and I think you're already seeing like the other arms of Marvel start to listen to it. Like you see toys coming out, you see the costumes appearing in video games. I think it's really going to be this is the start of something that's going to really permeate comics culture for the next decade or two.
And that's the interesting part also, because we keep not predicting the downfall of the MCU, but we keep asking, okay, well can they do it again? This is phase 4 and there's a phase 5. And again, it's bringing in characters and concepts that the Eternals. Look, I've been reading comics for 30 plus years and I couldn't tell you anything about the Eternals. Aside from maybe some research I'm now doing because they're making a movie about it, right? Whereas to now have the X-Men as a property we can properly watch in conjunction with the rest of the Marvel universe. I mean, this is Hassan's excited face. Look at him, very excited for all this. This is. Let's switch over
to in my seat.
Yeah. Let's switch over to DC real quick, because Future State. Give our listeners just a quick synopsis of how we got to Future State with all the kind of turmoil that happened with Dan DiDio last year and how that's kind of connected, and then give your prediction for what we are going to see in 2021 from this line.
Okay, Future State launched this week. It is a look forward into the future, sometimes 20, 30 years in the future, sometimes a couple generations at the main DC hero mantles. In some cases, like in many cases, it's new heroes taking on the mantle of like Batman and Superman, Suicide Squad, and some others, Aquaman. In some cases, it's older heroes, kind of like an old man, a Logan kind of a situation. It's like a fun 2-month jaunt for longtime fans. If they remember Age of Apocalypse as this kind of fun like break from the normal comics, they would kind of give this vastly wildly different version of things. This is what that is. It's a 2-month with like one straggler, basically a looking ahead. And as we've DC has already released their titles that'll be returning after Future State. That begins in March, and we can kind of see their plan. Kind of Future State has become this kind of test ground for many of the ongoing writers, the ongoing titles, like the creative teams that kind of test it out with this kind of fun, kind of disconnected from continuity approach. And now they're going to, and starting in March, many of the writers are going to show kind of how the heroes and villains could have got to that point. Like, for example, with Batman and Wonder Woman and things like that. So they'll work as fun standalone stories set in the future. This is kind of the best of Batman Beyond, kind of like the idea of that. Like if you're watching the cartoon in the 90s, just kind of this wildly different take on things, or Old Man Logan, kind of done as these kind of 2 and 3 issue stories that'll be collected probably by April or May. That'll look really good. And some of it could filter back and become an ongoing part of DC going forward, similar to how like Spider-Gwen was originally like a one-off character, and because fan support was there, like they ended up incorporating that back into Marvel.
Yeah, I mean,
see some of that.
It's good seeing DC take chances in terms of storytelling, and I actually always appreciated that about Dan DiDio. Whether or not he was successful or he failed, he seemed to have more of a cohesive plan. Ironically enough, being a DC guy, he had more of a cohesive plan than I thought the editorial staff at Marvel did with a lot of their stuff in the 2010s. What is the future for DC, though? Ironic, pun not intended. Dan's out. Jim Lee is the sole publisher, but it seems as if there's a lot of rumors around the future of DC publishing, and when they broke off from Diamond and the formats. I mean, what are you hearing and what are you seeing as to what's going to be coming from DC after post Future State?
I think DC has kind of fully embraced the idea that they're not the DC publisher, like in terms of publishing, not in terms of characters or creating, that they were in the 80s or 90s, and they are stopped trying to be that publisher and instead be this kind of this housing place for these characters and their stories, and basically creating new characters and also creating new stories for these characters that they publish in comics. But it's going to be very different. Like we already saw a couple years ago that DC cares less about being the number one direct market publisher. They're concerned about being the number one publisher, and they're really making steps to it's no longer just about comic stores or just about one set of comic fans. It's about fans and however they approach the material. When it comes to fans and their characters, and that they're used to being seen in certain ways, I think they will. DC will continue to take risks with new characters and getting lesser known characters a solo story, but that risk may result in a backup serial in the back of a issue instead of the risk of doing a solo book, which not to show too much behind the curtain, but like for every success of like this, a character that never has a solo book and gets a solo book, for every one of those successes, there's 10 or 15 failures that really kind of, for DC, it really hurts their bottom line and kind of discourages them from doing more. So now with these backup stories, that they can really try out new characters and see if they stick. And if they do, then they'll graduate them to their own stories.
Switching back over to the Disney arm, Star Wars has kind of seen a resurgence thanks to The Mandalorian, at least faith in Star Wars, and the High Republic is on everybody's lips right now. They really there seems to be a big push and people genuinely excited about it. I think thanks to Mandalorian, people are more excited about it than I think they would have been a few months ago. They would have been like, oh my gosh, more Disney crap. So is that the tone is that the sense you're getting from what you're seeing from people's reactions to all this stuff? And what can you tell us about what, the High Republic is and what fans can expect in 2021 from it?
The High Republic is a look back at the pre-Empire glory days of the Republic, like the Republic that we saw in the prequel movies was kind of at that downfall, but this is kind of back in the glory days when the Jedi Order was at their height, and it was kind of this time of prosperity. And so we're getting to see that kind of fabled Jedi Order and all these it's virtually all new characters, but you'll see like some archetypes and some places and things like that kind of manifest. For old time fans, this reminds me of Dark Horse's exploration of the time before the original trilogy, back when that was the only trilogy. And I'm really excited. I've read the first issues of the comic books. I've read some of the novels, like including the kids' novels, and I'm really excited, but I'm kind of cautious about how people, if they'll basically get latched on to all these new characters, because it's pretty much all new characters. Like it's not like the sequel trilogy where it's older characters mixed with these new faces. It's all new faces. So that's my only concern. There's so many characters.
Hassan, what are you thinking? Are you because you're my resident Star Wars expert. What's your level of excitement?
I agree with Chris about like being cautiously optimistic. I mean, it looks like it's a good thing. It's kind of a lackluster. I don't mean this in a negative. It's kind of a low key kind of thing to launch a bunch of books and a bunch of comic books after they, kind of barnstormed on the scene with The Force Awakens and the cancellation of Clone Wars for the inception of the Rebels, and this kind of like hostile takeover of the franchise. And now they're kind of trying to ease in with their, with another vision. They're being a lot more respectful. They're being a lot more tentative about establishing a whole new ground. And because of that approach, I'm optimistic about it, but it's cautiously optimistic. I mean, there's going to be variation of quality, just because it's just a number of different creators, so it's not like there's one person with one idea. It's a whole bunch of visions together. Some of them are going to be great and some are going to be maybe not so great or whatever. So, but I mean, my feelings are definitely positive. They're not negative.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. There's so many characters and it's all being introduced at once. It's kind of
right.
hard to find the narrative, and these like Star Wars for me is about individual characters that I love and story arcs. And for this is like this is so much material, and I'm just kind of wondering like if those characters will be basically discovered and kind of hoisted up in a way that people will be able to understand and kind of be attracted by.
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
But like in the meantime, we're still waiting on Mandalorian comics. I've done a story. Well, we've done a story on it. They announced they were going to do it, and the season 2 kind of came and went. Excuse me. And I asked IDW and Marvel about it, and they were like, "No comment." So, but like then you see like the one of the Marvel Star Wars artists, Ramon Rosanas, seemed so excited to do it that he did a Mandalorian fan comic, and it looks amazing. And I'd love to see a Mandalorian comic.
I've actually seen tons. Omar Morales, friend of the show, he did a fan comic, and it was fantastic. Like it was great. So maybe that's what Marvel's doing. They're like, we don't even have to pay people to do Mandalorian comics.
We'll just wait.
We'll just let everyone else do them and keep,
let them flood the market on their own. And
we'll there may be a good reason. Maybe Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have a very specific vision for the Mandalorian.
Yeah. Or maybe they're just too busy
basking
in the afterglow.
that no matter who's in charge, that there's a plan. That's all I hope, because we've been operating without a captain on that ship for a long time. So
that's all we can ever hope for. We will hope to have you back on the show, Chris. We definitely love having you on, and Happy New Year to you and yours. And I hope we as we kind of started the show out, we can put 2020 in the rear view. And it will be the year that will not be named. Looking ahead to
before I go, I just want to make sure people for this year that it's not Marvel, not DC, but Barry Windsor Smith has a new graphic novel called Monsters. It was scheduled to come out this month, but it was pushed back to April. This has been something he's working on for like 20 years.
Wow.
There's been pages out. It should be pretty amazing. There's also a Static Shock supposedly coming out in February, along with some new Milestone. I'm kind of worried that there hasn't been more promotion on that, but sometimes DC kind of drops stuff like out of the blue, and it's there and it's available to buy. So we'll kind of see. But Monsters and Static Shock, people should really be looking out for those.
All right. Well, as always, we appreciate the information because you're at the hub. Tell people where they can find you and where they can reach you on social media.
Sure. My home address is you can find me on newsarama.com / the Games Radar. I'm there pretty much 5 days a week and then some. Like I also talk about comics and kind of show like cool behind the scenes stuff at Chris Arrant on Twitter. And that's pretty much it.
I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank you guys for joining us as well. We hope you appreciated our look ahead to 2021. Next week, we're going to preview WandaVision and all the streaming stuff that will be dropping in 2021. We will see you guys next week.
Rogue Wave.